Okay. All right, we're on our way. So hello, everybody. This is the monthly meeting of San Mateo County Democracy for America. I'm Ashley Evans, and I'm subbing for our illustrious chair, Susie Ray, who is on the call, but is going to rejoin running the meeting next month. Oh, or wait, maybe next month is going to be our summer party, right? We'll talk about that later. So to get started, I am going to turn the meeting over to Nancy Goodban, who is going to introduce our wonderful speaker. Nancy?
Thank you so much, Ashley. And I am just honored to introduce Paul Bocanegra, who is our speaker. He was condemned to life in prison without parole when he was 17 years old after being in a car on his way home from summer school, and someone else in the car shot someone in another car and killed them. He was just a passenger. He served 25 and a half years in adult prisons, more than half of it in solitary confinement. He was then paroled under Senate Bill 9, which gave youth with life without parole sentences an opportunity to petition the court for a second sentencing hearing. And David Baruto is thrilled and happy to say that he had to do with that bill. So when he first met Paul, that was a good connection. Paul transitioned back into San Mateo County in September 2017, and he got off of parole 5 years later in 2021, obtaining agency and true freedom in his life for the first time. Today, he is a certified drug and alcohol counselor, a personal mentor for people who are transitioning back into the community, and an expert witness in criminal justice cases involving young people. He's testified at the state capitol. He's helped to defeat legislation that threatened current reforms. He's co-authored legislation in his county, and he's a member of the Latinx Advisory Committee for Senator Josh Becker. Paul co-founded Re-Evolution, a nonprofit, to use his lens of lived experience to provide meaningful support in prevention efforts with a focus on youth and person-centered reentry programs. He was the founding vice chair of Fix in San Mateo County, and that's where we started to really get to know each other. And he works tirelessly in the community to support kids and families who are in the system. Paul is a Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Commissioner for San Mateo County. That's called JJDPC. And if you remember, in March, we at DFA voted on 2 resolutions to support JJDPC's recommendations. One was to stop prosecuting kids as adults and sending them to adult prisons. They should be held accountable and sent to the local juvenile hall, out of juvenile court, and provided rehabilitation at the local hall, which is the Youth Service Center. The second resolution was to provide common sense improvements at the Youth Service Center, the juvenile hall, including decent food, adequate footwear that doesn't hurt their feet, ethnic hygiene products, soap and shampoo. 100% of the kids held there are children of color, as well as providing vocational programming and rehabilitation services. And he is here to follow up on that and talk about how we can help. We are really glad too that the Dem party, the San Mateo County Dems, passed those same 2 resolutions, or very similar, and put out a press release in the following meeting after ours. So I'll put a link in the chat later to sign up with a local group that Becca Healer, who's here, helped co-found, called In Our Care, or Becca can put it in the chat. It's a new community group to support the efforts of JJDPC. So Paul, thank you for all that you do.
Yes, thank you so much. Good evening to everyone here tonight. As Nancy Goodban explained, I'm Paul Bocanegra. I am a survivor of the school to prison pipeline. The only way I survived this is through the efforts of this party right here. I am a product. This is what the party initiated. This is what it wanted. And now it has given me a space and a voice to continue the work that they started through SB 9. And that's what I have pledged my life to. And those are the roles that I play in my community, specifically to improve the health and safety of our community, especially the next generation here in San Mateo County. So thank you so much for having me. And I will be sharing the screen at the moment here to share some slides. Can everyone see that there? Okay, good.
Yes, yes.
So
Perfect.
perfect. And so I'm going to back this up. This is who we are, the San Mateo County uh, Juvenile Justice Delinquency and Prevention Commission. We work here tirelessly in our county to provide exactly what the California Welfare and Institutions Code lays out for us here in the first section. Our duties to inquire into the administration of justice in San Mateo County Juvenile Court. This hasn't been easy for me to come home and transition into this role. After 25 and a half years and many reforms, I came home to find that our juvenile justice system is still in the same condition that it was when I was condemned. In fact, we are behind in our region here in San Mateo County. So this is part of the work that we do here in the delinquency, juvenile justice, and delinquency prevention. So we are established by the law. We work for the Board of Supervisors here in subsection 2. And these are all the institutions that we are in charge of providing oversight for in San Mateo County. We have the Juvenile Hall, which is also known as Youth Services Center, Camp, Canyon Oaks, and educational facilities that we provide oversight for. These are the statistics. San Mateo County, a very progressive county, a very rich county, rich in culture, not just in monies, rich in culture. We're made up of more than 50% of people of color here in San Mateo County. And these are the statistics here that I won't read every single one of them, but I'm sure that there's certain numbers here, there's data here that stands out to the average person. One of them is 99% of the youth currently that live in these adult-like cages that we've created here that mirror adult-like prisons that I was raised in. 99% of these kids, their faces in the windows when we go in there, are youth of color. So we are a bit over 50%. 98% or 99% of this 99% are Latinx kids, primarily arrested in Redwood City here where I live. They're number 1. Number 2 is San Mateo. And as you can see, we have San Bruno now tied with number 3, East Palo Alto. These are staggering numbers. Going into a juvenile hall where I have to go into communities to enjoy certain foods and culture and people here in the juvenile carceral system. It is just absolutely heavy with kids of color. Many of these kids suffering mental health issues, survivors of trauma. They're broken before they fall into our system. And then we have this system here that we're introducing them to in our county. Another thing I'd like to highlight here is there are girls from Sonoma County. These are pipelines being created by our probation department with our taxpayer money. We currently do not have enough girls to fill our camp with girls, which is something that we should all be celebrating. However, our probation has sought now to replace those San Mateo girls that we no longer have, girls from outside of our county. So right now we're currently incarcerating 2 girls from Sonoma County, and the probation department last year, I believe it was in February, attempted to create another pipeline from San Francisco. From Santa Cruz. They wanted to also rent out our bed space at our camp for girls, which were going to be primarily of color, for $150 a day. Myself and my colleague showed up at the Board of Supervisor and we were able to foil this pipeline that again was going to be created. And the message to these kids of color were, you're probably not going to ever afford to be able to live in our county, but you'll be good enough to serve your time in our county. Just absolutely the wrong message. Again, behind the rest of the region in incarcerating youth, as well as providing certain services that they should have. So just let that sit in there. Also, San Francisco, 18% of the kids incarcerated are from out of our county. Some of them, Sonoma County, who we bring in, we ship them in. And then San Francisco is another city where youth who come into our county and are arrested for various different offenses, not always violent either. Let me switch over to the next one. Juvenile Hall, recent improvements. Let's just take a look at this for a second. These are the recent improvements that we've been able to make in the last year. However, we have been advocating well over that before we were able to acquire these improvements. Although they're small, just think about what they have done to raise the quality of life for the youth that we have incarcerated. Again, these are traumatized youth. Almost all of them suffer from mental health problems. Last year, we were able to secure pillows. Think about this for a second. Pillows, San Mateo County, a cup for these youth to drink out of. That means they didn't have to put their mouth under spilling water for them to drink as they had since the facility was built. We're introducing technology, MP3 players, some stimulation for these kids in their adult-like cages that we have them in. Again, this is something that had been absent, but due to the hard volunteer work that the commission has done, even on its own time, we were able to acquire these simple improvements that have raised the quality of life for these youth, and it's made a difference. Mattresses, and then the reduction of sensory deprivation. There's no programs. There's not enough programs to rehabilitate these kids. So they have majority of their time is spent in their cells. I tend to use the word cages. Some people feel offended, but there's a definition that comes with that I'll share a little later. A difference between a room and a cage, or I can just get into that very quickly now. A cage, and it was translated, I think a mutual friend of all of us, David, had shared that he had read a book about a veteran, a POW, and his description of the cage that they kept him in was that the distinguishing factors were a room, you could open it from the inside. A cage, you had no agency to leave that small environment. And this is the situation that our youth are in. And horrible things. Now they're single, they're living in there alone. Prior to that, they had cellmates, but again, there had been violence. When you're in these cages, sometimes you're in there with bigger, more sophisticated people or kids, and you're at a disadvantage, and you can't open that door from the inside. So sometimes kids have been found to be victims in this instance, and this is why we no longer have kids together in the facility. So pillows, cups, technology, for us, these are the things we take for granted. For our youth, our traumatized youth, our youth that are suffering mental health issues, these things mean the world to them. And we've had youth in there living there for up to 2 years now, and some of them can spend up to the age of 25 in this facility that has been in operation since 2006. And since then, these are some of the improvements that we've made. Again, small, but huge if you're living in the situation that our youth are living in. These are current initiatives and issues and projects that we're working on together. So take a look at this information. Any of you here have already supported some of these projects here. by passing the resolutions. And I want to thank everybody here for taking a stand and making the decision to support these resolutions. This isn't about politics. This is about humanity. These are our youth. What do we want for our youth? Do we seek vengeance or do we seek rehabilitation, treatment? Do we seek vengeance of kids? And that's what it has looked like until now that the community has come together and has began to support these important projects as a result of knowledge, right? Because many of us have lived here for several years, are pillars in our communities, but have just been unaware. And since the awareness has gone up, we have made a lot of progress. Again, progression has taken place only because of leaders like yourself that have stood up and said, okay, we have to do something about it. We want to implement here, and I'll just read some of the bullet points: secure track rehabilitation programming. It is unfortunate that we are here asking for rehabilitative programming. We spend about $2 million a year incarcerating each of these kids, and we are seeking assistance to build a rehabilitation treatment programming. We're asking for a therapeutic design mental health rooms or facility to accompany these youth. So this means they're able to tap into a service privately rather than how it's done right now. There's a room in front of all these windows on these cages, and they sit in there with a therapist, and everybody in there could watch as one of the youth are sitting in there with a therapist. So if they decide to process certain traumas, certain things, experiences that they've got, that they've gone through, everyone is watching. So if, I've sought therapy, and usually when I'm processing, there's a lot of emotions that come up, and I can't imagine going through my therapeutic stages in front of everybody. So this is something that we definitely have to take very serious, because it will only enhance public safety if we take mental health serious in these kids and provide them the space that they need to get this done here. Vocational and college degree programs. This is something that is unfortunate that we are here in 2023 actively arguing to try to bring into our programs. So right now, our youth who are serving time in San Mateo County are not able to access any vocational or college degree programs. Again, we have a juvenile hall where we spend almost $2 million a year on each of these youth, incarcerating them. We weren't providing them pillows or cups. We were able to secure that. We're providing them technology. The community has provided them hair clippers, and just recently we were donated some money to help them build a garden. These are only small substitutes for the vocational and college training that they'll need before they re-enter our community. Again, public safety is at stake here. This is a public safety issue. If these youth are going into these adult-like cages that we have them in, and they're serving 7 years, 6 years, there's not a decompression stage, there's no vocational training, there's no college degree programs. So this transition back into our community is going to come with absolutely no therapy, no rehabilitative programs, no vocation. So how do we expect these young kids, boys and girls, to transition back into our educational institutions, our spiritual institutions, our work institutions, able to function without having the basic education that they will need to transition? Again, it is hard for those of us who have been here all our lives to survive here in San Mateo County. Transitioning a youth back into the community as an adult with none of the rehabilitative services that they have puts our public at risk. We are not serving the child, and we are not serving our public. when we don't provide these services that they're entitled to, that we're entitled to. We should feel that when these kids come home, that we'll still remain safe, that we'll be safe in our community, and that they would have received everything that San Mateo County has to offer. And we have a lot to offer out here. So food is something else that should stand out here. We had a great diet. For some reason, in order to save money, they began to feed these kids what they're feeding the adults in the McGuire County Jail. So they had a really balanced meal, and to save money, they transitioned to adult county jail processed food. Why that would happen when these kids are right in the middle of their maturation process. Their prefrontal cortex is developing, their bodies are developing, they have all these things happening, and we subject them to now the 2,000 calorie diet that we are offering adults here at the McGuire jail, which again is not serving public safety. These kids are going to bed hungry. They have a lack of taste for the food that is being provided. And honestly, I probably wouldn't eat the food myself. So again, these are our youth, and this is how they're being treated right here with our taxpayer monies. So how can we make a difference? This is the important part right here, because we know that this community here has already stood by and sought change. This is the action part of things. Join our commission, right? No one is too big, no one is too young, no one is too old, no one is too experienced to join the commission. What it would mean to the commission, how it would empower the commission's work if we join it, would be astronomical. What we've gotten done today, I can only imagine with the people that are here today, if they were to join it, how much we could be empowered. These are the monthly meetings. They're on YouTube. If you can't join them, they're normally the last Tuesday of the month. A couple of other things that should stand out here is, how do we support juvenile program services here? That would come through asking our city council, our board of supervisors in their meetings publicly to support some of the programs that we've been seeking here. This is not something extraordinary. It's not something unique. This is something that is already being provided here in our region, specifically Santa Clara County, who's doing an amazing job in providing rehabilitative services. This is, our neighbor is the county that condemned me at 17. And when I was in there, it felt like I was in the YSC. Today, this is what it looks like. We recently went back, my colleague and I, on a tour of what they've developed there. And I was just overwhelmed with emotion walking into these new facilities, seeing their college programming, seeing their computer programming, seeing these youth of color right there on their computers typing away, seeing their walls with Stanford, San Jose State. They had these different flags of the schools that some of these kids were attending. I was emotional because they had made progress in rehabilitation there. It was something different than what I had experienced, but I was also saddened because I knew I was going to have to come home to San Mateo County and come into this juvenile hall and see what we have here as opposed to what is there. If we make contact with city council's board of supervisors, we could ask them to do a better job at providing the funding that is needed to create these programs and these healthy environmental settings that are needed aside from just an adult-like cage. Invite us to speak. This is important, getting the word out. Taking this information with you and taking it to your support networks and asking them to support it. Staying informed, following us on social media, checking out what we're up to, and then spreading the word. Spreading the word is absolutely crucial in San Mateo County, because since I've come home and since I've begun this work, one thing that I've noticed when I share this information with community members, any community member, doesn't matter who they are, when they hear this, they can't believe it, that it's happening right here in San Mateo County. And it causes people to act. It causes them to feel what we felt here when we decided to support those urgent resolutions. We're in a state of immediacy. This requires immediacy. These are children that lack agency, that lack a voice, and that are 100% dependent on the adults to make the best decisions for them. And right now, it doesn't look like we have their best interest. And I think it's time that the community step in with the commission and help us provide oversight and deliver the quality of life that we're capable of delivering, not only to our community members out here, but our incarcerated community members in our institutions, specifically in this case, our children's institutions. So that will conclude my presentations on the slides. I know we wanted to open it up to some Q&A here, so I'll stop sharing my screen at this point to be able to open it up for conversation or questions regarding some of the information that I just shared with everyone. But that is what we have. And again, I want to thank everyone here for tuning in, for learning about this, and for sitting in your emotions, right? Because this is hard for all of us to sit in, because we feel complicit almost in it. That's what I felt when I had just come home. And so I saw change, and I had to step up, and I've been living in my trauma every day since I came home to try to improve the conditions that our youth are living in here. And I am so honored to be able to receive the support that I have. Again, this isn't about politics, this is about humanity, and definitely we have shown the humanity side here, and I'm hoping to continue to have your support moving forward. So I'll open it up to Q&A, because I can speak of this issue all day. This is my expertise here, and again, thank you so much for tuning in and wanting to learn more about the work that we're all doing here. Absolutely. And I say all of us because I wouldn't be here if we had not initiated Senate Bill 9. So thank you so much for all the work that we continue to do, and it's a blessing.
Thank you, Paul. We're the ones who are honored to have you. With your perspective, you bring so much to this discussion, so we thank you. We are going to open it up to Q&A. A few rules. Go into reactions on your screen, and if you have a question, and click on raise your hand. We will take people in order. We ask that you keep your questions brief. And we also ask that you just do, rather than enter into a conversation with Paul to the detriment of everybody else who wants to talk to him, we ask that you ask one question. If you have more questions, then after you've asked your first question, lower your hand, then raise it again and go to the end of the queue, and you can ask your second question. So we are going to start with Bill Newell. Bill.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much. Every time you speak, I learn something new. I was struck by in your data that the leading city for arrests of juveniles within San Mateo County seems to be Redwood City. That's the highest city of origin. Does that mean that most juvenile arrests in the county are occurring in Redwood City? I would therefore conclude they're being done by the Redwood City Police. What can we learn from that? And what, from your perspective, do you think we can do in an immediate way to address what's going on in Redwood City?
Yes, that's a great question. And so, I've met our newly appointed chief in North Fair Oaks, and it was great to meet her, as well as Chief Mulholland. Very committed community members I think we all want the same thing. We just have a different way of going about it. Redwood City is number one for several reasons, right? This is, we have underserved areas in Redwood City that are more aggressively policed than other parts of the community. And I believe that what needs to be done in order to kind of hamper the numbers from going up are more intervention programs supported by the police department. I believe that if the police department became more in touch with their communities, got to know who was in their communities, what families have been impacted the most in the past by either mental health calls or police calls, that there can be more done to really prevent the next generation. And there's a story that I learned from Don Horsley when I first came home. He was one of the first supporters of the work that I'm doing. And he shared his experience, his lived experience as a deputy here, and how proud he was to be putting away the bad guys. But on his 19th year, he said that he started to arrest the kids, community members' kids, and he realized something wasn't right. And that's why he got behind the work that I was doing. And I believe that our police department need to be more aware, like our supervisor, retired supervisor Horsley, his experience was, you're arresting the kids of family members that have had problems now. How do we break that cycle? And I think that it would take police departments to become more involved in intervention rather than arrest. Intervention, prevention, rather than arresting. Before they're arrested, many of these kids are known to police officers. They had SROs, they're aware of who's in the schools. This bike life movement really triggered how SROs are being used because that's where they were recovering their information, their data from, to identify these kids riding bikes. So I believe prevention and intervention bill is the most effective way for communities and police departments to really change the data that we're seeing today in Redwood City. I hope that answered your question, sir.
Okay, next is Susie Ray.
Thanks. And Paul, I mean, such a powerful story you've told us tonight. So I'll start by just saying thanks.
Thank you.
You're so calm sharing it. And I'm kind of going, I don't see how you're so calm, but I'm glad you're able to be as calm as you are. So my question is actually kind of back along with Bill's, talking about the city. And you mentioned going to city council meetings. Do you have something prepared that I'm in San Mateo? So, I mean, I could see going and doing, just a public comment, 2 minutes, but do you have something that you can share with us that we can take as a base to go talk to our individual cities?
Yes, so I think there's some links in the chat that my colleague Joanna Rasmussen placed in there that give you the information that you can take to city council. There's inspection reports with recommendations in there. There's a lot of information there that you can take to city council, and you can speak at all of your city councils. I spoke at your city council actually this week for a displaced family of 10.
Right.
I mentor a lot of youth in San Mateo. I work with a lot of youth as well as a lot of parents there. And so I felt the need, after listening and hearing 2 families being displaced in 1 month right there in San Mateo, I felt the need to speak up, because these are kids that are attending our churches. These are kids that are attending our schools. And if their parents are being displaced, then that means these kids are going to be attending our institutions under stress and anxiety. And sometimes we don't recognize that in a classroom because teachers have such a complicated job already. But if we make this known to our city council of the troubles that our youth are having and some of the things that they can do, they become aware, and everybody wants to act. That's one thing I know about San Mateo County. When it comes to our kids, the mama bears come out, and this is something that they don't accept. So yeah, tap into those links there, get that information, and carry the torch. And if you ever need assistance, please reach out to us. I am more than willing to stand by anybody here to educate our fellow community members who will act once they receive the information. Thank you so much for that question, Susie.
Okay, Elizabeth Rossi.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing and shining a light on the conditions here. I have a question about the juvenile facility where these kids are being held. Is it a mix of kids who are waiting for their court dates and kids who've already been sentenced?
Yes.
And then, okay, yeah, so yes.
So that is absolutely yes. So here in San Mateo County, excuse me, we have the adult-like cage. Remember, we all know who Charles Manson is, right? This is the face of evil, face of evil. He was forced to live in an adult-like cage exactly like our kids are in. So think about it. We have the serial killer who's the face of evil. And then we have a kid who maybe spray paints, shoplifts hygiene because he's homeless, or he's spray painting a wall and he receives the same adult-like cage. And this is also the case whether you are arrested and charged with murder or shoplifting, you receive the exact same thing. There's no lower level of security for a kid who's maybe been sentenced to 3 months, who will be moved to a camp where the girls are housed. And that is unfortunate because those are two forms of punishment there. We have a camp for girls, which the boys will never see. But yet the girls are good enough to see the cages because they sleep with the boys on the same tiers because there's not enough staff to staff just a few girls at the camp. So everyone receives the same thing. It doesn't matter whether you spray painted a wall or you shot and killed somebody, you're receiving the same thing. You're going to the same places. And it's just unfortunate that there's not a separation of level of custody or a step down from what they're exposed to from the beginning. From the beginning to the end, they get the same page.
Wow. Okay, Lynn, you're up.
Yes, thank you, Paul, for your presentation.
Thank you.
There are a couple of things. You talked about the police North Fair Oaks. Is that the police station on Middlefield Road?
Yes, that's our deputies. And again, we have a new sheriff who's bringing a new practice, who sees her community because she's from there differently. And so we're hoping that that culture of policing will change in our underserved communities. And this is why the people came together, because we wanted systemic change. Those are the first steps towards it. And we hope that she's bringing a different police model. And she's been working very closely. I have to give credit where credit's due. We don't openly put the things out there that our newly elected sheriff has been doing for the community, but she has been very active in resolving certain conflicts and problems that have gone on and have been made that she has been made aware of in her county, as well as in their policing practices. And so she's actively working toward changing that. So yes, that's one of the police stations that they do have on Middlefield. And again, we hope that they would move toward a more preventive and intervention model rather than the standard policing model that had existed under her predecessor.
East Palo Alto has a Boys and Girls Club. Is there one at all in Redwood City for kids to go to?
Yes, absolutely. There is a Boys and Girls Club, but sometimes you have to pay for these things. They're just not open to everybody. Sometimes some youth don't know how to access these spaces. They don't know what is in there. There needs to be, again, greater outreach. If there's intervention, if there's prevention, these kids, if they're actively out there in the communities, these kids will hear about it. Right now, there's really not much of that happening, and partly because of COVID, right? COVID has hampered things a lot, have set a lot of people back, and we're just coming out of a pandemic. But again, even during the pandemic, we were incarcerating, so we should have been rehabilitating. And so this is the work that's being done now to point towards a more intervention and prevention work.
And I'd like to join a group if people are interested in going to the Board of Supervisors when they're discussing the budget, so that these kids get decent food. I mean, that's just outrageous.
Absolutely.
So if somebody wants to get a group together, I would be glad to go to the Board of Supervisors.
Absolutely. And in the chat, there are those links. There's groups like In Our Care that have recently formed as a result of learning of what everyone here is listening to today. So again, this is the activism. This is San Mateo County. These are the leaders of our county right now. They've paved the path for us to just do this exact work that we're talking about. And I'm so happy to hear you want to join this, and thank you so much for joining it. Tap into one of those links in the chat. We need all of the support we can get. And when it comes from leaders like that are here today, our leaders that are representing us tend to listen more frequently. And at the data, District 4, EPA, and Redwood City are both up there, And we know that there's been problems here for a long time, and it's finally time to reimagine juvenile justice and hopefully do something different other than incarcerate.
All right, thank you. And let's move to Diana.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you so much, Paul, for the work that you're doing and shining a light on this important issue, and to all of our leaders who are also on the call who are supporting you in this work. I do have a question, but I wanted to clarify two things. One is that the Boys and Girls Club families do not pay for their participation. And access may be, knowing about it may be an issue, but there are hundreds of students that are being supported by the Boys and Girls Club. And it's an amazing organization and future leaders of our community. The other is that speaking of the statistic for Redwood City, do you have a way of separating the Redwood City jurisdiction from the North Fair Oaks, which is the sheriff? And you kind of alluded to that, but I want that to be really clear that Redwood City is Redwood City proper, and then it's Redwood City, North Fair Oaks. So it's really important to know that those are, one is governed and the jurisdiction is the Redwood City Police, and the other is the Sheriff's Department. But my question is not that. I just wanted to clarify. Is that the you also alluded to the challenges that the Redwood City Police had with the recent bicycle, the entertainment slash possibly problematic bicycle things that were going on. And I wanted to ask your opinion of, if you have one, of how well you feel that the police department's outreach to the CBOs, to Ivan and Raphael and other community organizations that are joining the youth on bikes and trying to create leadership roles for them. I'm wondering if that's something on your radar and whether you have an opinion about that.
Yes, absolutely. I've actually joined some of their meetings to encourage them to open up those same resources to kids that were already on probation. Because right now, for instance, like PAL and many of the organizations, they work with youth, but once you're on probation, it creates a barrier. So they recently came to present to our commission to ask for support in how to tap into the youth that have already been involved in the criminal justice system, because they would like to bring them into those folds of the program that they're doing. So no, they're absolutely doing great work. But when that was happening, when there was this concern regarding the bikes, there was also a spike of arrests for kids from EPA in Redwood City. Some of them were beat up by the police, swollen arms, no medical attention. Joanna and I would go visit one weekend. There's hurt kids in there, no medical attention. And we would ask, like, hey, what happened? oh, well, we were there with the bikes and they were kind of roughed up. These are big kids. They look like adults. And so it was getting out of hand. And so I was so happy to hear that they're moving now. And just recently at our last commission meeting, they came to ask for support in connecting those community members that have community kids that have had entanglements already with the criminal justice system, so they could bring them in. So that's the type of work that is able to be done when they become aware of the problem. And they came straight to our commission to ask for that collaboration. And you have to give credit where credit's due. When people learn of this population, they want to help it. And so that's what's happening. So I support their program 100%. And thank you for the clarification. Of course, Redwood City and North Fair Oaks Unincorporated, policed by two different models. And again, very complicated job.
All right, thank you. And on to Elsa.
Thank you so much, Paul. Your story and just all of the surrounding elements for it are, I think, life-changing for us. And we may know the tip of the iceberg or sense the tip of the iceberg, but boy, the picture you paint of the iceberg, which I'm sure is deeper than you've even been able to summarize, leads me to ask, have you or has In Our Care visited specific supervisors to ask for a budget line item to provide a number of these things in the currently being discussed budget? And are you organizing, or is In Our Care organizing us to speak as individual citizens at the June 13th and the following two Board of Supervisor meetings in June, now that they're laying out their budget for this year? And apparently supervisors can recommend and push for certain elements to become line items in the budget.
Great, two great questions. So to the first one, yes, In Our Care is actively working to organize conversations. I believe that In Our Care has already met with District Attorney Wagstaff and had another meeting with the probation, Chief of Probation, John Keene. And so they are organizing the community. The Board of Supervisors is a little bit more complicated. The commission is set up and governed by David Canepa, our Board of Supervisors, David Canepa, who oversees the Juvenile Justice Commission. He's created a subcommittee where the entire board have created a subcommittee and titled it Reimagine Juvenile Hall, Reimagine Juvenile Justice in San Mateo County. We were tasked with trying to create a different model, find a different model that could provide rehabilitation services to our youth outside of the current model that we have. What we learned, and this committee is made up of District Attorney Wagstaff, County Executive Callaghy, Chief of Probation, Behavioral Health is there, Private Defenders is there. We're all part of this. There's no money. That was the determining finding we walked away with. They said with the closure of DJJ, which our governor ordered the closure of DJJ, there were juvenile prisons. These were prisons that were indicted, I believe, in 2000, 2001 for gladiator fights. I personally served time in DJJ, and I was so thankful to our governor when he ordered the closure of that and returned all of our youth back to their natural counties to serve out their rehabilitative sentences. Well, what we found in San Mateo County was that our leadership, and these are their words, that it's not our problem. They're dropping it on us. This is the state's problem because they closed it. And my position is, no, this is our problem because we police these kids, we prosecute these kids, we incarcerate these kids, and it's our job to make sure that they receive the rehabilitation they need. So when they come home, that our kids and our families and we're safe, and that they've learned their lesson. They've learned from their experience That's not the case. They're saying that there is no money. We don't have money to even knock down a wall to create of a behavioral health setting for these kids. It's shocking. So the Board of Supervisors, we're going to be presenting our findings next month. I think it got pushed out to, and I would encourage everybody to come and provide public comment on what they feel rehabilitation should look like there, and urge their district representatives to find the monies, because they find monies for for projects all the time, and we're just asking them to come together and create a budget that can really reimagine what we've been providing here. We can look to our neighbors right here in the Bay Area and look at models that they are providing, and we can mirror that. We're more than capable of doing that. The community wants it. I believe our leaders want it. It's just, how do we get there? And I think we get there by urging them to make this a priority in funding.
But
Hope that
July,
answers your question.
July is too late because the budget is set by the end of June. Don't you want us to be at the June 13th meeting and the one after that saying, we demand this become a line item right now? And shouldn't In Our Care be there right now? And shouldn't all of us, should you appoint different ones here to make appointments now with each of our individual supervisor members, taking as many of us as can be there, saying, we insist that this happen now, because they have a plush $4.2 billion budget for this coming year, 1.2 billion above what they had last year. They keep saying, oh, we've got money this year. That is not only an outrageous response, we can go right back to it. So I want you please to be able to say, put in the chat which supervisor, which of us can go visit, and who's going to lead that parade. We're good activists.
Listen, you show up June 13th, I am there every month. And if we want to make this known this month, let's do it. I believe that everyone here is a great public speaker. I've tuned in on these meetings. I've heard many of us speak. We can show up and ask our respected representatives of our district to find the money, to provide, and to finally reimagine juvenile hall once and for all. We could do that. You're right. The money is there. It's just allocating the funds to specifically target the reimagining of this juvenile criminal justice system. And I think that you're absolutely right. We should show up this month. I will be there this month. I will be giving public comment on this month, next month, the following month. I'm very known to the Board of Supervisors, and I look forward to being there. We should organize that.
We're running out of time, so let's move to, more people want to ask questions. So we'll do Gail and Bill and Becca, and then that's going to have to be the end for tonight. Oh, and one thing I wanted to say, Paul, you said you've sat in on some of our meetings. Well, we're very proud that you are also a member of our club.
Absolutely.
That is the way to sit in on our meetings. So Gail, take it away.
Okay, well, a little piece of information which many people already know intuitively. When my son was in middle school and high school, he and his friends got up to some hijinks. None of them served any time. None of them was arrested. They were spoken to severely because their parents had money and lawyers, and you know how that goes.
Yeah.
I think we all know that, but I'm just confirming that. And secondly, my question, what about the role of plea bargaining and pressuring young people to plead guilty? How does that play out in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of these cases, almost all of them, plea bargain. Many of these plea bargains result in kids pleading guilty to adult strikes. That means we're going to let you out today, but we're going to punish your future because you pled guilty to these adult strikes. You can never own a gun. You can never join a police force. You can't be a probation officer growing up. You can't be a paramedic. There's a certain amount of time that you're punished for in the future. So this model is very strategic. There's no programs to rehabilitate the kids. So there's something called the electronic monitoring program. It's like a little leash they put on the ankles of these youth that they're able to monitor them. So they don't receive rehabilitation. They receive the electronic monitoring device. They're put back right into their homes or their communities where they were traumatized at. And we expect them to be able to make different decisions after experiencing incarceration there. And I hope that answers your question. We need to do more to rehabilitate our kids' electronic monitoring device, and we need to be providing mental health services. It's extremely important right now. We're sending mental health representatives to deal with mental health calls. I think every call involving a youth should fall right into that under that umbrella, because every kid, if they lack the maturation, they're already they're working with a disadvantage when it comes to working with police. And I think a social worker should be present at all times to assist our kids.
Thank you. Bill?
I'm gonna, I want to defer to Becca. Let Becca go first before I say anything. She's got her hand up.
Okay, Becca, you want to unmute yourself?
Thank you, Bill. I just wanted to quickly say I am co-founder of In Our Care. We're founded to support the youth in our community and also to support the JJDPC. Happy if anybody wants to reach out to me or to us to help organize what we're talking about when meeting with the Board of Supervisors. We have met with 2 of the board as In Our Care, and we are reaching out to speak to the others, just to answer that question. I also just want to say really quickly something Paul and I have spoken about. With the 4th of July coming up, I live in North Fair Oaks. Last night, I practically jumped out of my bed as the fireworks went off. We want to think about this the same way we want to think about these kids on bikes. Many times these are kids, and Paul, you should actually speak to this, but many times these are kids, we need to be speaking with the families and the communities, not turning all these kids over to the police. Thoughts on that, Paul?
Right. Kids being mischievous. Do they scare us? Yes.
Yeah.
Do they sometimes terrorize us? Yes. Do they deserve what we're currently giving them?
No.
It doesn't make sense. Again, we want to be humane and we want to be rehabilitative, and that's not what we're providing them at the moment.
All right, Bill, take us home.
Paul, so many issues you raised, so many needs. I'm really troubled by the deferral by the powers that be to say there's no money. We know that's just not true. If Santa Clara County can do it, we absolutely can do it. We're a much richer county than most other counties. But I want to go back to one thing that you talked about. Maybe it's not number one, but you mentioned a reentry program on terms of things that need to be done. And I'm particularly concerned about that because that's something that I've done work in a past life with. And so I want to know what you know about reentry right now, if anything is being done for juveniles, and also what your vision is of what it should look like to be an effective program.
Yeah, that's a great question. Wraparound services. We hear this very frequently. We don't even provide that while in custody. And when we transition these kids after that experience, they go home with nothing. Many of these kids are hungry. My colleagues and I, with the work that we do through Re-Evolution, with the funding we received from CZI, and recently one of the Board of Supervisors donated to the organization because of the work we do. We deliver food. We bring parents to court. We bring kids to court. We show up to court as advocates. We help them when they're victims. We help them secure citizenship if they're immigrant communities, members that are victims of violent crimes. And I can just go on about the wraparound services that we provide. I think that reentry, it takes a village. We hear that all the time. Oh, it takes a village to raise our kids. It takes a village to raise our kids. It doesn't even matter if they've been incarcerated. It requires the same village, the same effort, probably a little extra attention, because there's something going on with these kids once they fall into the system. Many of them are broken. I was broken when I fell into the system. And instead of finding help that I needed, the system punished me and punished me and punished me repeatedly. But I understood it was a system. It wasn't the people. And right now, we're speaking to the people. And if the people can adjust some of the bolts and screws in the system that we operate, we can make a big difference. But wraparound services for kids from the second they come in, these services should follow them into the community to find out what exactly is happening at the home and be able to provide those services to the collaterals. Because if you improve the lives of the collaterals, you also improve the lives of the kids that they're taking care of.
All right. Well, Paul, thank you so much. You've been amazing. And we want to thank Nancy Goodban for arranging this presentation. So thank you. As I said before, we're proud you're a member of our club. So
Thank you.
you'll be around. We know where to find you.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you from all of us.
Thank you. And I, again, thank you for fighting for my freedom. And I look forward to fighting with you for the freedom of these kids that lack the current freedoms that they deserve. So thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it. In the chat, there's a lot of information, especially some of the supervisors that we should contact. Ray Mueller, Dave Pine, Warren Slocum. Those are the three that we definitely need to be contacting. There's a couple, David Canepa, we've spoken with also Noelia, they're aware, but those are the other board of supervisors that we definitely need the support of. So thank you so much. Again, I look forward to sitting in for the rest of this meeting, and please reach out. And if there's spaces where you need me or my colleagues to speak, we are there to support you, and thank you for your support. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, that was wonderful. Right now, I just want to insert a reminder that I think most of the people here and most of our past members have signed it up to become members for this coming year. So we thank everyone who has paid their dues and pledged to be with us for this coming year. And for any of you who haven't gotten around to doing that yet, now's a good time. And Casey is our wonderful treasurer. She's not here tonight, but she wanted that message put across. So now we're going to briefly talk about the California Democratic Convention that was last weekend. It was billed as a reorganizing convention. It was, the motto was, "Don't agonize, organize." And this is something I'm seeing, I watch a lot of MSNBC, and I hear them talking about how the Democrats have finally wised up and are organizing year round and taking this all very seriously. And so the convention was furthering that idea. The keynote speaker was Nancy Pelosi, who was wonderful and inspiring as always. And those of you who were here, who were there at the convention, if you'd like to make some comments, I was there, and a highlight was spending some time with Paul and with Jim Lawrence and other new people who hadn't been to conventions before. And my roommate was a young woman named Diana Reddy. Would you like to make some comments, Diana?
Absolutely. Yes, your charming young roommate. That's right. Well, and actually my grandson stayed with us one night, so you did. And I made him climb into this gigantic bed himself, and he climbs trees, but he had a hard time getting into that bed. I don't know. But it was entertaining having him with us that first night. Yeah, I just want to say that Paul used the phrase, it takes a village, but I have to say, it's going to take a village for us to take back the Senate and the House. And they were kind of, every speaker was drumming that into us, right? And so just to say that even locally, that Republicans have always had this brilliant idea of finding school boards and city councils and commissions and other places for them to apply for as a getting a foot in the door for higher office. And we need to, Democrats are starting to wise up. When I was working for the Sequoia district, we had one libertarian who ran every year and ignored all of the greetings from our superintendent asking if he would like to meet, if he'd like to learn about the district, if he would like to know more about what was going on. And that really wasn't why he was running. He was running because he hoped that nobody would and that his seat would be uncontested. And that is happening even in our cities, right, where seats are not contested. And so we get what we get when we don't seek out wonderful people to run for office. So look around you. If there's a Democrat, I'm always going to say Democrat, who should be filling a seat, either school board or city council or whatever, please encourage them to run and join us here at DFA in supporting good Democrats in the state for the Assembly and Senate, and nationally, where we send postcards and get on the phone. And I'm so glad that Paula's here, Roxana, so glad to see you here tonight. We need Spanish speakers to get on the phones when we call other states too. So one year when we were doing a lot of phone calling, I guess that was maybe 16 or 18, Arizona told us that we in San Mateo County were doing such an amazing job of calling that they were able to take all their people to the street, that they were able to knock on doors. They didn't have to do any phone calling because of the work that we were doing. So just to put that out there, that we can do this and we need to do this. Truly our state, our community, our state, and our country is depending on us. But the convention was fabulous. It got me revved up. We came back with lots of posters, which I will share at the central committee. So if anyone wants one of my posters, it will come with a price. You have to promise to work for it. So it's postcards and phone banking. That's all I ask. So thank you, Ashley. Yeah, it was a fabulous convention, and I had the best roommate.
Diana and I had submitted a resolution, it was a club resolution. Remember the one about rooftop solar? About expanding that program rather than and lifting the restrictions that have been put on incentives for rooftop solar. So we had applied, submitted that resolution, and it was not one of the ones they chose for this convention. A lot of things are happening concerning that subject, and also they felt that maybe our submittal was a little too technical, so they want to work with us and will instead bring it up at the e-board meeting, which I think will be in September.
It's in August in Australia, and then we have the other convention in November.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, next year's convention is going to be this year in November because because California will be voting an early primary date again. So, Elsa, you were there. Do you care to add anything?
Yes, I'd love to make 3 points, and I'd also love to point out that Paul also was there, so he might like to say a word or
We
two.
have mentioned that.
And he was, it was his first convention. So my 3 points from convention are, first of all, our entourage had a phenomenal group of young people. And I think for the first time, there was a slate from Ashley and Diana, your district, not mine, that called itself the Progressive Slate. Half of them won. And we had people like Noelia, Chelsea Bonini, and Jim Lawrence, and James Coleman in our group. It was a group of 13, and it was fabulous. So exciting to see them. We'd been told that, well, I've been to a lot of conventions, and it was not an election year. And so, it wasn't that exciting a convention. It was exciting. We had all 3 candidates for Senate there. We got to hear all 3 of them speak at different points in time. We got untold numbers of photos with them, as Paul can attest. And that also was very exciting. We too took a resolution there, the ACO REACH resolution. And there was a different version of it that sort of the head of that group did take. And it too was not approved to go to the floor, where only 10 resolutions are taken to the floor. But another county, another DCC group also joined with us but in their own resolution. So we know that the resolutions committee had to work around that. But as you know, we had said, please, Biden, kill ACO REACH. And while you're at it, kill Medicare Advantage. The resolutions committee changed it to say, Biden, please support Medicare. And that's all they said. It was just appallingly, it wasn't, close to what we'd said. So run to be on the resolutions committee. Resolutions do not go into the platform. They are statements of values. So we can question how much value they do have. But if you ever want to become a delegate and run for the platform committee or the legislative committee, I highly recommend that. Thank you.
Paul, do you want to add anything?
Yes, absolutely. Got to listen to a lot of the issues that are also plaguing different parts of the community. And the same team that we met, I also met, and that's who invited me to speak last night or this week at San Mateo City Council. Just becoming more involved, people sharing some of the issues that are plaguing our neighbors and asking us to become involved, just like we did tonight. And then also listening to Nancy Pelosi as a woman and her role in changing how the party looks here in the region. She has been absolutely an example to follow, and it was just an honor sitting there listening to her, listening to our governor, and watching our governor handle certain situations like an absolute president. It was an experience there that I had to share with all of our leaders, our delegates, our Senator Becker, who brought me there and has appointed me one of his delegates for the community. It was just an overwhelming experience. The sense of inclusion really highlighted that our entire county wants to know what everyone feels, what their part is. And they were definitely providing the platform and sharing the space. And I think that San Mateo definitely demonstrated unity there at that convention. And it was absolutely powerful and moving for me. Besides hanging out with all the cool people.
Thanks, Paul. And also on Saturday, the San Mateo County Democratic Central Committee had their annual luncheon. And that was very well attended and is always a very popular feature of, we get people from out of the county. It is well known, and it was, as always, very successful. So a good experience all the way around. Next on our agenda, we're going to briefly talk about two pieces of legislation. We have requests from members and from, I guess, from our social justice task force for some action on these. So I'm first going to introduce Nancy Goodban and ask her to talk about Assembly Bill 28.
Thank you, Ashley. So yes, it comes from the Social Justice Task Force. Assembly Bill 28 has passed the Assembly and it's headed towards the Senate. I believe it's still in the Rules Committee trying to figure out where to go. It passed the Assembly May 25th. Assembly Bill 28 basically puts an 11% excise tax on gun manufacturers and gun dealers to fund gun prevention and gun safety efforts. So to me, this is a no-brainer. You're basically taxing the dealers, you're taxing the manufacturers. They will pass that tax on to customers. This is not going to be a tax that the taxpayers pay. And the funding would really help with gun violence prevention efforts. There's a couple of critical but temporary investments that California has made, and it'll fund those. And also new gun violence prevention, like research, which is still really hard, it is pretty much prohibited at the national level. Mental health services, support services for victims, better improvement of investigations, and clearance rates. When there's a firearms homicide, they have to figure out where that gun came from and what to do about it. Educating gun owners, this is a big one. It will help fund that. On gun safety laws and how to store your guns safely, since many gun deaths are due to accidents that happen in the home. And also the final one that it's talking about funding is just relinquishing firearms. So again, it's AB 28. It passed the Assembly 56-7, and there were 7 abstentions, and it's now in the Senate. And what we would like the club to do is vote to support AB 28 to tax gun dealers and gun manufacturers 11% to fund gun violence prevention efforts, and I'm assuming pass that on to customers. That is not in the law, but that's how it will work.
Nancy, and what will you do with this support? So we approve this tonight. What will you then do with that?
I think like the next effort, there's going to be a portal that they open up probably within the next week when they figure out where it goes, one of the legislative portals, and we will ask Susie to submit a letter of support from the club through the portal.
All right. I would like to hear, is there a motion to support AB 28? Nancy, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I will move. We support AB 28 and tell the Senate and our senators, including our Senator Josh Becker, that we support it.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Elsa. All right, is there any discussion? Okay, then let's call the vote. Those paid up current members of the club, if you are in favor of supporting AB 28, please raise your hand. Oops, I pushed the wrong thing. There. All right, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 yeses. Would you please put down your hands? All right. Those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, and the other one is AB 1306. And Gail is going to talk to us about that. Gail? Gail?
Yes, the task force, we've voted to support this bill. It's sort of a housekeeping bill, but it's could have very significant consequences for some small groups. At least it's a start. It would prohibit the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation from basically cooperating with ICE and, turning people over to immigration who belong to certain categories of people eligible for release. So there's specified categories like youthful offenders, the elderly, and medical parole releases. So it's a start, and it's I think sounds like a no-brainer to me. And pretty simple, and I don't think it's going to cost a lot of money either. So can we take a vote on this? Can we move that we support AB 1306?
Second.
Okay. Then discussion. Gail, could you tell us the status of the current bill?
I'm hoping that Nancy might be able to fill that in. Well, it has passed, I believe. I think it passed the assembly, and it has to be
passed
supported
the
in the Senate.
assembly.
Yeah.
Yes, it
So
passed
we
the
need the
assembly
Senate to support it. Yeah.
54-18 on May 30th. And so it's headed as similar to AB 28. It's headed to the Senate. They have to figure out where to put it. I was looking today and it looks like they're stuck in the Rules Committee.
Okay, and is there any discussion about this?
Yeah, I'd like to definitely speak a bit on this, just really quick. This is a very important bill. So I came home through Senate Bill 9, ending LWOP for youth. The first youth that came home, he was from Orange County, also like myself, just present when adults committed a carjacking murder. This kid served 25 years. He came home maybe about a month before I did, but unfortunately he was deported to Mexico because of his immigration status. So he served his time for a murder, carjacking that he didn't commit, served 25 years. And once the law changed, CDCR acted to cooperate with ICE, and he's living in Mexico. His entire family is here. He's been here since he was an infant. And it's just unfortunate that he received an extra punishment on top of what he had already received. So again, I think this is an awesome bill, and I just want to advocate for it. Thank you so much for presenting it, Gail.
Thank you. Anyone want to speak in opposition? I'm not expecting a lot of hands on this one. Okay, well then let's call the question. The motion has been made to support AB 1306. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. Those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, I just see hands going down. Gail's hand, okay, good. All right, this also passes unanimously. Congratulations, ladies, and let's hope these bills go through. Okay, next we are going to move to our task force updates, and we will start with 2023 elections. Marshall is not here. Bill Newell is the co-chair of that task force. What do you have to report for us, Bill?
I'll do what I can. I just briefly checked in with Marshall while we were meeting. He sends his regards. He's at his sister's now. Anyway, it's pretty much as we've been working since the last report we gave. We're trying to work in those Senate districts around the country where we think we have the best chance of winning. Now, one of the races that we're going to start to pay more attention to is the opponent for Ted Cruz. Marshall said there's recently a couple new people that have emerged in opposition to him that might be having a chance. So we're going to be looking at Ted Cruz in Texas to target that one. Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin is a very important race because the other senator there is Ron Johnson. We know what he's like, and Tammy's been there for a long time. She's becoming much more of a leader also for women and civil rights in the Senate. So she's somebody we're definitely going to be looking to support. And then we're also looking at congressional races within California that we can support. And also in terms of the senator that would be replacing Feinstein, as you know, we have three really progressive people in the Democratic Party: Barbara Lee, Katie Porter, and Mr. Schiff, I guess it is. Did I say that right? So there's no real unanimity right now among the three in terms of which we're going to recommend. I think that's going to have to be played out more in the primary races. So I don't want to go on too long, Ashley. So unless somebody has a question, I'll just leave it there.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Bill. And let's move on next to Climate Change Task Force. Flavia?
Hi, yeah. So our group met last month, and what we decided that we wanted to focus on next was to have a sit-down session with our elected officials. And so since we usually do this jointly with the Social Justice Committee, we're gonna, really narrow down how many issues we bring into the discussion. And so each member is gonna be submitting a maximum of 3 issues, and justifying, why they picked this issue, what problem, what is it that we're asking our electeds, and then if the elected does what we hope he or she will do, then what will be the effect of that. So we have to do some homework, and it'll be probably a few months off before we get all of this coordinated, but it'll be an interesting discussion. So that's all I have to report for now.
Okay, and before I call on Elsa, I have a question. I like the idea of, I think we've been most successful when we have these meetings with the legislators in the fall when they're not so busy, because we actually meet with them instead of their staff members. So is that what you're thinking? Yeah, yeah, I'd like to see us do that. We need to do that every year.
Yeah, I'm not anxious to put a date or a target date on it. So whatever is most appropriate.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad you're doing that. Elsa, did you have something?
Yes, I'd like to go backwards one step to Bill's report when he talked about the 3 Senate candidates for the California Senate race. And I'd like to say that of those 3 and the way they align from an issues standpoint, our sense is that, and based on track record, that Adam Schiff is the most conservative of those 3. I'll call him centrist, and that Barbara Lee and Katie Porter are distinctly on the progressive side. At convention, I told Barbara that she invented progression, progressive. And I think we will be hard pressed in many ways to decide between those two. I think either one would be unbelievably perfect in that role. I do have a preference, I might add. As my sister said, California needs 10 senators, which we do, given the depth and the quality of our bench. So that's my only point for that. Shall I go on to healthcare or not yet?
Well, let's see if I think Diana has a question.
I have a comment. So I had the same belief that Elsa just shared about our three Senate candidates until I saw a Chronicle article this last week, which I shared with Talk, that indicated very clearly, to my shock and amazement, that Adam Schiff is, well, Barbara Lee is the most progressive without question, and I will go to, but the next person is Adam Schiff in terms of being aligned with Barbara Lee's votes on significant issues. So I was shocked, but I can share that that article with you because it was really comprehensive, and the author did some amazing research on it. So just wanted to share that.
What was the conclusion to that? I mean,
that Barbara Lee is the most progressive, and Adam Schiff was next, and Katie Porter surprisingly was the more centrist in terms of not going along with some of the votes that had been requested of her.
I ran into Adam Schiff and Barbara Lee together in the exhibit hall at the convention. And they were chatting, and then then the reporters showed up and they had their fancy cameras. And so, I saw them and I got excited and I went over there with my cell phone and I got in among the professional photographers and took a picture of them. And then I started talking to them. I said something like, so it hasn't come to fisticuffs yet. And they both laughed, and then we were having a conversation. They were telling me how much they admire each other and that they have been friends and colleagues for a long time, and they will go on being friends and colleagues afterwards. And it was really a thrill. It was a thrill to talk to both of them. And Katie, I'm very impressed with. She's a fighter, so yeah. Anyway,
Ashley,
I think
Ashley, I just want to add to my report if I can.
Bill,
Yes. I forgot to mention our task force is meeting next Monday at 7 p.m. on Zoom, and we can put out the link to anybody, and anybody on this call who's part of that task force. I know Greg's still with us, and anybody else, just to remember that that's when we're going to be meeting. And I really appreciate Diane, what you shared with us. I was aware of that article and have taken a look at it, and I think you can be sure that we're going to also probably use that as some source material in our discussions in the task force about the Senate race, because I think that's all really good information that members of our task force will need to have. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now we are moving on to healthcare. Elsa, you're up.
Thanks so much, Ashley. So in healthcare, we are still, particularly one of us, pushing hard to try and have both of the bills that are now both of them are in the Assembly, actually, but one started in the Senate, the other's in the Assembly. We're trying to have those two bills, the proponents of them talk together at the same table, because they are dividing, and we will again not get CalCare if they fail to come together. Both of the authors, and I talked with them at the convention again, just to make sure of this, agree with each other that this is the Assembly and the Senate authors agree that the two bills do work together. So it's outrageous that these entrenched interests of we the people basically are not coming to the table. And I hate to say it, but it's really the CNA, NNU nurses who are not willing to talk with the HCN collaboration of all of the other healthcare related people, including seniors, including a lot of unions in the state. And I find that unconscionable. The nurses definitely have the best organization on the ground. I, little by little, have gotten the doctors and some of HCN to go to talk to legislators, which they did all last summer. And we think that that 13 of the new legislators are much friendlier to CalCare. So we're hoping in the next election that we really can move it forward. However, if these two different boots on the ground and great thinkers don't come together, that's ridiculous. So anytime we can call on your help for that, you will hear about it. The other thing is that, as I said, the best boots on the ground organization, which is the nurses, CNA and NNU, is holding monthly canvases, which includes going to farmers markets. The next one is the weekend of June 24th and 25th. And I know Ashley, for instance, is a great farmers market promoter for CSM, the College of San Mateo. So I will be knocking on her door. San Mateo's is on Saturday morning. It's an absolutely heavenly setting. It's a huge market. And anyone who could come and do a 1 or 2 hour shift with me, I would be so grateful to have. The most important thing is to be able to get the name CalCare out there and to point out what its benefits are, including that it will have our costs, our expenses, as well as improving care. If we don't get that message out first, any little internal squabbles are going to be for naught. The more people we can have recommending to their, in fact, insisting to their state legislators that they want them to vote for it, the better. So we need to build that momentum. The Sunday farmers market is going to be in Mountain View, and there might also be one. Lynn Heidekoper was on this before. I can't do Sundays, but she may do one in Menlo Park. There's also one in Palo Alto at the time. Menlo Park is in our county. And so those of you who live near there or have Sundays freer, that one also is from 9 to 1. And we would love to have you there too. So thanks for your help.
All right, thank you. And last but never least, the Social Justice Task Force. Gail, would you like to start?
Well, yes, I'm sure Diana will have something to add, but I would like to point to 3 bills that are posted in the chat. There's 2 assembly bills, 460 and 1337, that have passed the assembly, but we want to urge the Senate to support them. So for those 2 assembly bills, you actually paradoxically contact your senator, which I guess would be Josh Becker for most of us, right? And for the Senate bill, that one has also passed. So paradoxically, you would contact your assemblyman, which would be Mark Berman or whoever else you have. Because who's the other assemblyman? For some
And
of
the
us.
number of that bill is that 389? Yeah.
Yes, 389. So these relate to correcting really huge holes in our water policy. One will give the state water board the ability to enforce stopping transfers of water during periods of drought and high stress. So historically, some water districts have just thumbed their nose at the state water board. So that's just a common sense housekeeping. They need to be able to enforce it. The second one is also housekeeping. It allows the state water board to regulate the senior water right people who up until now thumb their nose at the state water board. So that's also a good housekeeping bill. And the third one would take away the exemption of senior water rights holders from reporting their water use. Up until now, they didn't even have to report. So these are just common sense housekeeping bills, but they can be very significant and they're hot issues right now. They're likely to be acted on soon. So if you can find it in your heart to contact any of your legislators about these, it would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
And Diana?
So actually, between juvenile justice, gun safety, water, and Medicare Advantage, we kind of talked about these same things at our meeting. I can mention that David, who attends our meetings but is rarely available to attend our regular meetings, just passed cert, so he was very proud about that and did report that at our meeting. And just on behalf of us and all of the task force, just a reminder that we are promoting our task force to new members and wanting former members to continue to join us. But members do need to be paid up members in order to participate in task forces. So just that small reminder. Our social justice task force meets on Friday at 7 o'clock and by Zoom. And so join us. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, Susie, we're in the home stretch. We're going to end this meeting on time or earlier. So we come to the announcements part of the meeting. And I know, was it Diana that you said you had an announcement?
I did, but I sort of pulled it into the convention announcement about the fact that so the California Democrats are asking all of our committees, all of us Democrats, to support the elections, right? The state elections, national elections, and to host house parties and to volunteer and to look around you and encourage Dems to run for office. So that's that list. And then the message that I had for Casey is that there will be a message coming out soon about all of our clubs being asked to recharter, and that's something that we pay for, to recharter to belong to the Central Committee, which is meeting. I can announce that we're meeting next Thursday, and our guest is former Congresswoman, sorry, I gave her a little promotion, Jackie Spear, and she's going to talk about the new Jackie Spear Foundation that is focused on children in our community that are having a hard time and for whom the present nonprofits are not doing the job, not helping. And so she's going after people with deep pockets to help support our children in the community. So I'm really eager to hear her story that's next Thursday at 7 o'clock at the IBEW, or it will be also a hybrid. We're going to experiment with a hybrid meeting, see how that goes, but it will be in person at IBEW for those who are interested.
And thank you. You took my my announcement too, that I was going to make about Jackie. We will be starting with the business meeting because she can't be there till 7:30. But I hope that you can join us. So next is Elsa.
Thank you so much. Actually, the last meeting was also hybrid, and that was wonderful. Either the last one or the one before that. There's
It was
lots
in person, not hybrid.
No, I'm talking about the DCC meeting.
Yeah, it wasn't hybrid. It was only in person. We were talking about it, but it was not.
Sorry, then the one before that was
No,
hybrid.
we only, okay, sorry to correct, but our speaker was on Zoom, but it was not hybrid. We didn't have members who could join us for that meeting. It was we just had him present to us on Zoom.
Sorry, for some reason I was at one DCC meeting this year that was, so apologies.
Yeah,
anyway,
no.
It's a great meeting, I will say. I would like to announce that Fix in San Mateo, of whom we have almost half this group as members, it has a wonderful event coming up. in August, which will be our party, our next party. But for the first time, we get to go to the sea, to the coast, and we're going to the wonderful Half Moon Bay Brewery. They are supporting us by giving the space free. We get both an inside room and their beautiful outside room right by where they make all the beer. Beautiful views of the sea, and we'd love to have you all come to this. The entry is free. It's from 4:30 to 6. It will go a little longer than that. There are beautiful hors d'oeuvres free for you. It's a no-host bar. We'd love to have you bring as many of your friends as possible, both those who live on the coast. And this is our very first coast event. But clearly, it's a big, important part of our county. So anyone you can bring, if you'd like to go on a mini vacation yourself, bring your family, bring 5 friends each, ideally. And we will have our first ever silent auction also. So you can bid on dinners at fun houses, adventures, gift certificates, tickets to different things. So we'd love to have you not only look forward to this, but if you have anything up your sleeve that we could offer, please do let me know. We would love to have more is merrier. And clearly, especially given what a fun party this will be, it's our first restaurant party, not in a church and not in a park. Please do put August 16th on your calendar, 4:30 in the afternoon. And you can bring a checkbook or cash if you want. We will have the ability to pay for any of your gorgeous auction items online, but anything you'd like to donate, we'd love to hear about. Thank you.
I think your minute's up. Let's move to Gail.
Okay. Yeah, in case you didn't know, Palo Alto Medical Foundation is promoting Medicare Advantage big time. Fancy glossy brochures urging their patients to join Medicare Advantage, big posters posted in the waiting room. I don't know what we can do about this, but I think those of you who know the disadvantages of Medicare Advantage, which is a really bad deal. If you get really sick, you will be really sorry. It's fine so long as you're relatively healthy. So there might be a role for collective action, or maybe you all want to let them know you don't appreciate that. Thank you.
And Nancy.
Yeah, thanks. So I did put a link in the chat to sign up for the Half Moon Bay Brewing Company event, which is Wednesday, August 16th. And as Elsa said so well, please come. We're also asking people to speak at the Board of Supervisors June 13th on behalf of Fix and San Mateo County. The board, we are winning. The board has said they expect to have an ordinance by the end of the year, but they haven't reported back publicly since last November when they passed it. So we're basically asking people to just comment and say thank you to the Board of Supervisors for unanimously voting for civilian oversight of the sheriff. And please let us know how it's going, have a study session, let the public know what's up. Thanks.
Thank you. Susie?
Well, with the August 16th meeting in Half Moon Bay, org, we might need to see about changing our org meeting so that we can attend, because it would be the same night.
Do it at dinner. Do it at dinner.
Let's think about that one. Okay. I just want to do the announcement too, is that July 14th is our summer party, and it'll be at Diana's house. The newsletter coming out will be filled with that. So just make sure you've got it on your calendar. It's going to be a Friday night. That way it's a little easier for everybody to be there, and hopefully maybe some of our electeds. That's all I got.
I hope it'll be summer by then.
And that's true. That's true.
All right. Elsa's back.
Oh, she is. Thanks, Ashley, so much. I just wanted to say, per Gail's excellent point on the glossy brochures for Medicare Advantage at PAMF, the way you push back is, one, you tell your specific physician you're outraged by this, that you don't want to be kicked off it if and when you get a bad diagnosis or an expensive diagnosis. You don't want to have to choose only from certain physician groups, which they will narrow Medicare, which currently lets you go to anyone, that they will narrow that. You can now only go to certain physicians. You find this an incredibly backwards looking and caring for you situation, and you are outraged. That's point one. Point two is go to your local legislators. They know all those people. They need to, at their parties with them, in sidewalk talk with them, they need to help push back. Thank you, Gail.
Okay, and I'd like to say again how happy we are to see Susie and to know she's on the mend. Everything went great and she will be back running things again. Well, we've gotten down to the important people, haven't we? Our numbers have dwindled a bit, but here we are, and we'll be at the party in July. And thank you all. And again, Paul, thank you for your wonderful presentation. So good night, and we're out of here 5 minutes early. Yay. Bye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Paul.
everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for a great meeting. And Paul, thank you so much from the
Thank you
bottom
so
of our
much.
hearts.
Thank you so much, Paul. We will be in
Power to the
touch.
people.
Yes.